So in week 2, we talked a lot about how we perceive ourselves and the fear of public speaking. In my journal for week 2, we talked about how we perceive ourselves, and I perceived myself as being very shy and down to earth and very introverted. In week 3, we talked about small talk and tips on small talk, and the great tips that we got were like the one that I remember the most was be the first one, as in be the first person to start the conversation. In week 4, we talked about nonverbal communications, and what I remember most was the exercise where we were supposed to observe others, and I realized that a lot of people use hand gestures as nonverbal communication, like smiling, shaking your hand, stuff like that. My perception on people has changed a lot by watching their nonverbal gestures. In week 5, we talked about body language, and your body language really shapes who you are and how you're perceived. The nonverbal, we talked about hand gestures and stuff like that. That's what I talked about in my journal for week 5. Week 6, we talked about learning styles. I realized it's pretty easy for me to learn in any environment. I can read, write, repeat, anything like that to learn what I need to. For week 6, we talked about what kind of vert we are, and I am an ambivert. Depending on the situation, I can be introverted or extroverted. In week 7, we talked about we took personality tests, I think, and it showed that I was very conscious of other people's feelings and very agreeable, tried to keep the situation mellow. And in my journal entry, that's pretty much what we talked about, was the personality type, and I was very task-oriented and calm, but I preferred to work alone because I like to get things done quickly. In week 8, we talked about tools to be a good listener, going out and trying to pick up on different sounds and patterns of recognition. Like, I think the exercise was we were supposed to go out and pick one of the different tests, and I picked going out and just listening and hearing all the different noises and what was going on. In week 9, we talked about critical thinking and when it's good to be critical and non-critical. Like, it's good to be critical of a situation, but not to criticize people in a harsh way. In week 10, we talked about the relationship model, and in my journal, we talked about relationship termination, as in like ending a relationship. And then I talked about my relationship with my best friend, and it started out with initiating and then continued on to integration. Like towards the end, we integrated, we talk every day, we see each other every time we can. In week 12, we talked about working together. And what I remembered most was, it's not what you're doing, it's the people you do it with. And this was really important to me because it makes a lot of sense. It's not really what you're doing, it's how you get it done and the people that help you get it done. And in my journal, we talked about perception from someone else's point of view. And I did the point of view of my niece, seeing how she perceived me. And she perceives me as being fun most of the time and then not as fun the other time. Okay, that's all I've got to say.